Hello there, and a very warm welcome to the Morning Cafe. My name is Elengare. Quite a lot packed for you today. I want us to begin by look at the dailies, and with me via Skype is Gerald Bitok, who is a political strategist. Gerald, are you there? Good morning. It's a really chilly morning, Gerald. I mean, coming here was just a little bit of a hassle for me. Traffic seems to be going back to normal. How has it been for you?
It's because I actually noticed since last week, it looks like people are getting back to normal, especially in Nairobi, life is getting back to normal. And like you said, it's extremely chilly today. Yesterday it was a bit hot, but today it's another thing. It's winter, literally.
All right. So, Gerald, let's just begin by looking at the People Daily. I think we'll just look at the People Daily today, owing to the other dailies having a bit of a problem. But we'll just stick to the People Daily. When you look at the front page, Gerald, talking about a headline here reading, "It's time to review the Constitution." Further to this story, it talks about President makes compelling case for relook at Supreme document to align it to the country's changing needs as he leads nation in unique celebrations from State House due to COVID-19. What do you make of this development, Gerald?
I think there's an obsession that Africans have with the Constitution. If we look at other countries like Europe and America especially, it has the oldest constitution. And actually the 2010 constitution was lauded as the best constitution, not only in Africa, but almost in the world. And when we were agitating for the change of constitution 2010, we actually believed that the constitution was going to fix all the problems that Kenya had. And it's funny enough that even before we finish its implementation, before we get to 60% of its implementation, we already want to change it. So I don't know what inspired the president to change the constitution, especially in democracy. He says that he wants to expand the executive to ensure that it caters for everyone. But I think, in my own opinion, I've never really thought that the problem that we have in this country hasn't to do with the executive, because it's not about the political class. It's about the Mwananchi. It's about ensuring the Mwananchi gets services. It's about ensuring that the Mwananchi gets the basic rights. It's about ensuring that the Mwananchi also is protected by the same constitution. So, as much as we would want to imagine that maybe we need a change of the constitution, in my own opinion, I don't think we need a change of the constitution right now. We need to completely implement the constitution 2010. If you look at devolution, which is an integral part of 2010 constitution, we have not even really implemented as such. Apart from creating the county government, we've not given them the structures that they need and the resources that they need to ensure that they function. So I saw the passion in which the president was talking about the constitutional change for the last 2 weeks. I've seen some interviews he's been running, and he has continued to remain adamant that he wants to leave a country that has a changed constitution. But I think it's not in his prerogative to change the constitution. It's upon the request of Kenyans. When I look at the timelines again, it might not be in his favor. I want to believe there that COVID-19 is with us for the end of this year, probably until around April next year or May. I don't think there's time for us to focus on a referendum. There's need for us to focus on the economy. And if the president will choose to focus on a referendum or a constitutional change, then he would have lost all the priorities that Kenyans would expect to see him playing. So it's left to time. Let's see if the timelines will allow him to run a referendum, which I doubt, because the constitution is very clear that anything that changes the structure of government will need to be implemented 24 months before the general election. I saw there was a bill that was being brought to parliament the other day. But again, there's a need for us to go into a public opinion, which is a referendum, and a referendum is actually overtaken by, unless we're going to postpone the general elections by another year.
Okay, Gerald.
But the way things are, I think it's going to be a bit difficult.
Even as you talk about the referendum, there's also a development on this story, Father, talking about the president sounding very keen, Gerald, to push radical changes in the structure of the executive as proposed in the BBI that could further widen the rift between him and Ruto. Even talking about the referendum, changes in the executive, do you think they're intertwined in terms of the objective of both?
You see, what's happening? What's happening there is that unless, and I've always said this, that there's need for us to ensure that our government system is run from a point of expertise. Any changes that needs to be made, it to be made in the executive or made in the constitution, should be in the best interest of the country, not in the best interest of a politician. Because I can tell you this, me and you will never be here forever. I'll never be a politician forever. The president will not be a president forever. He'll leave. By next year, it'll be going up. So in the best interest of the country is when the changes should be made. When you look at the way the Constitution 2010 was formulated, it had nothing to do with expanding the executive. In any case, it actually compressed the executive into fewer ministers and an executive government. How we are going back to expanding and bloating up the executive to an extent that it will still be a burden to the Mwananchi. So the executive does not have any business in being expanded. As we look at it right now, as much as we still have the powers are running, there's still a lot of lapse and a lot of lacunas in the way the implementation is being done for Constitution 2010. So the expansion of the executive is not necessary, if you ask me. And I think it's not in the best interest of the country. It's in the best interest of the political class. Okay. And I think the political class needs to understand that apart from the few of them, there's almost 50 million Kenyans who deserve to be listened to and given an opportunity to be part of governance in this country. So the expansion of the executive is a lost priority, and it's not a priority, especially at a time when Kenyans are suffering in an economy that's dysfunctional.
Okay. Well, Gerald, let's just take a look at another story. Still on the front page of the People Daily, the headline reads, D-Day for Duale at Jubilee PG. This story talking about Uhuru to chair a meeting of party coalition National Assembly members this morning as he continues to purge, Gerald, or rather continues the purge of his deputy Ruto's allies, including House Majority Leader. What do you think will come out of today's meeting, if you really could give us, some futuristic ideas?
I would say that you can never pocket a naked man. The people who are being fought are already naked. They've already given out the positions. If you are the way Kimani Ngunjiri and Susan K, and I had a privilege of having a conversation with them last evening, and I was trying to understand what was really going through their mind when they met the press that they did yesterday. And I think the president is now beginning to run a competition alone. He's in a relay that's handing over to himself and running himself and winning his own race. He's the one who's putting the tape at the end, and he's the one who's holding the prize for himself and even giving himself glucose. It's a self-defeating strategy that he's putting in, because I also talked to Moses Kuria yesterday. And Moses Kuria, they've already given up these positions. There's nothing that's really shocking for them that's going to happen today. And it's self-defeating, because I was imagining that the president thought that by the part that he had done as the Senate, probably these other guys would be scared and want to toe the line. But there's a danger when you are fighting someone who no longer has anything to lose. The purge is already against people who have surrendered those positions, that have made peace with the fact that they're not going to have those positions. So what is going to happen is the changes are going to be made. There's nothing these guys can do about it, and they are not going to fight it back. In fact, all the MPs will be in status today, including those who are going to be kicked out. They'll go to the PG meeting, including those Kinangunjiris and Moses Kurias and even Duale. They'll be there, and they'll be able to see their own dethroning and their own massacre on the table of political sacrificial table. Duale is going to go. But again, there's a big problem. Do you
believe that Duale's fate is already sealed? What do you foresee for today's meeting? Do you think he will survive?
Every member, of course, there has been a need fight to ensure that they retain Duale. And the people who have been proposing this have been David Murade. But David Murade is a political broker. So you don't know what they have brokered with Duale, but he has been pushing, and Muturi has also been pushing that they retain Duale, because they know the danger of having a majority leader outside there, with another cluster of MPs who are already bitter and out of positions. Is a crazy thing. So the government, the president has to balance, because what I'm seeing there is a reverse of the gains that he's trying to achieve. In the next 5 months, the same guys who have been kicked out, because these are people who are elected, right? You can dethrone the nominated MPs and senators because, well, they don't have the public or actually the citizen mandate to serve them. But any elected leader is a very dangerous leader, because there's the same way elected with the president. The president was elected by the people, the MPs were elected by the people. So if they remove them from these committees, they are now creating a time bomb. In the next 5 months, these are the same guys that are going to fight this government very fastly. So if I was the president, I would save Duale to begin with. I'll save, because Duale is a serious loser. I'll save Duale.
All right.
Dethrone the other committee members, but the majority leader in National Assembly, it will be a mess to remove Duale. It's going to be a serious mess. So I know there are campaigns to retain Duale, and actually the people running the campaign is Murathe and Muturi and a few other guys. The people who are actually pushing for the removal of Duale is Kimani Ngunjiri and Raphael Tuju, who don't want to see Duale in parliament. But it's left to time. But I can tell you, this will be the last stroke on the on the horse's back.
Okay, let's move on to another story, just slightly away from politics, but still within the world of politics. On page 3, there's a story here. The headline reads, "A nation holds unconventional Madaraka feat." I mean, talking about the 57th Madaraka Day was drastically unconventional, not the usual, and of course the first of its kind, Gerald. But more importantly, of course, you saw Deputy President William Ruto there. You could say about, according to this story and what many people have also said, he was not seated too close, 2 meters apart from the president. What do you make of this?
He was not seated or he was seated too close?
Pardon?
He was not seated or he was seated too close?
No. Okay, the whole idea of even the deputy president being able to attend the celebrations is a story on its own. What do you make of the fact that he actually made effort to attend the celebrations, considering what's been happening and what we are even talking about in the world of politics? The purge.
I think what's happening between, I think I would say that is the most confusing relationship in Kenya right now. It's the most toxic and most confusing relationship. This day they're happy. The next time, they are just crazy. I mean, it's like that way you usually say, one minute, these guys have all the bromance. In fact, yesterday they had the matching ties. They were having those conversations, they were laughing together. I could saw they were complimenting their wives from the balconies. There was a kind of an emotional upheaval, a nostalgia from 2013 and 2017 from all these guys were operating. But then again, at night, it was a night of long knives, where you even talked about those MPs being choked last night. So it leaves you wondering what exactly is going on through the minds of these guys. There are people who are saying he was not sitting too close, but I also did not see Raila, by the way, at the podium. I did not see him. I saw him that when he was walking out. But it was quite confusing. Well, actually, the deputy president has been at State House since Saturday. That's what I'm informed. He has been there since Saturday. And I don't know what has been shaping the conversation that these guys have been having. And if you look at the way the deputy president was talking, if you try and read the body language, the way he was talking, as much as he made a speech that was very brief and also kind of praised the president and told him we have all your support, there is, at the back end, there is some level, you could feel that there's a strain, there's an emotional strain in the way he was expressing himself. And I remember one of the quotations that he made, and in politics, you have to make do of any word that is uttered. He said that 57 years ago, Kenyans made a sacrifice for us to have the privilege, the most privilege of making decisions for ourselves. I don't know what that meant, but for me, as a political analyst and strategist, I'll try to read his mind. When he says, Kenyans made a sacrifice for us to be able to make decisions on our own. Probably could be telling the president the kind of fight that is going on right now is an undemocratic, is an undemocratic move. When you look at the relationship, it's the most confusing relationship. We are going to see what's going now to, of course, since they are done with the National Assembly. If they're not going to touch the ministries, then in the next 1 month or 2 months, we are going to see what is really going on in Jubilee. If you look at the way Raila Odinga has been behaving lately as well, it's quite funny. Just out of nowhere, Raila Odinga has come out and said that he's not interested in a government of national unity, wants a referendum. So I think also the handshake is falling apart. Both marriages, Mpanga Kando, and the main marriage is beginning to deteriorate at some point. If you look at Wycliffe Mutavati as well, who has been seen to be a compromise candidate for the system, he's also stepping back. And I understand that Raila actually refused the idea of sharing the cabinet post because he believed that he was going to inherit the failures of Jubilee. So probably you could see maybe the president is making a tactical retreat to his deputies, in the fact that they have been having meetings over the weekend and the way they were behaving, somewhere you could feel like there's some vibe that's going on. Or he has actually decided to drive the way he had talked about. Because in his statement or in his speech, he's still very categorical that he wants to change the structure of the country. And the DP is actually against the changing of the constitution or expanding of the executive. So let's see, in the next 1 month, we'll be able to see how this relationship is going.
Okay. Moving on to page 14, this is our last story, Gerald. Talk about the headline is stating expectations high as plans to rescue SMEs underway. I know this is a discussion I'm set to have later, but I'd like to pick your mind, Gerald, about this story. The concern here being SMEs may not survive if funding doesn't come through very soon. And of course, many businesses having closed, people are still struggling to put food on the table. The current status of SMEs, what do you make of it?
Actually, the current status of the economy is terrible. And if you realize, Leah, the people who run the economy are the small enterprises, not the big enterprises. The big enterprises don't churn money that fast. The sectors that run the economy and build the economy are the small enterprises. And if you look at Kibaki's strategy, Kibaki was really focused on ensuring that they empower the small enterprises. You look at the border operators, Kibaki was the first man to bring in border by ensuring putting zero taxes. Zero rating taxes on motorcycles. And everyone somehow had a motorbike. And you look at these enterprises, small enterprises, the money that runs so fast and exchanges hands very fast is in the small enterprises. Ensure that you empower the mamambogas of this world, those small traders, because those are the people that build an economy. If you look at an economy that's being sustained by the small enterprises that is very robust, you see an economy that is changing money too fast and also growing. The only reason why Kibaki was able to grow the economy is because they showed that the common mananchi earn money in their pockets. When you talk about the common mananchi having money in the market, it means in the pocket, it means that you're empowering the mamamboga, you're empowering the blacksmith in Juakali, you're empowering the border operator to ensure that they run their business and exchange money. If you look at the strategy of actually reviving the SME sector, there's no structure. An SME sector needs to be structured. The same way, and I don't understand why the president never inherited what Kibaki's blueprint had on the SMEs. It was very robust. If in Kibaki's time, when you could go to the markets or to the back streets in town, Kikomba and Moy Avenue, going back all the way to Luthuli, you could find a lot of banks pitching tent, looking for people to take up loan.
Well, I think this is my final question to you relating to this story on SMEs and their survival during this pandemic period. There has been consideration from the government to give the SMEs loans. But the feeling is that, are they even able to service the loans, number one? And number two, should they not be given grants instead, as we've seen with other foreign countries?
And that's why I'm saying there's no structure. My point actually is there's no structure. Even as the government is expressing intentions of funding the SMEs, there's no structure. The money might even end elsewhere. And even if it was to end in the pockets of the SME operators, these are people who have been oppressed by the economy. The chances that they'll be able to turn back the money and pay back could be another story. So I think what the government should do is, as you've seen also what Botswana did. Botswana gave up grants to SMEs to ensure that they're able to operate business. So if we're serious about reviving the SMEs, let them give grants. But again, what is the structure for giving out this money? It might end up in the wrong pockets in the way we see the country is. So let the structures and the strategies come first, then we talk about the money later. Okay. If we are really serious about reviving the SMEs.
All right, Gerald. Thank you so much, Gerald Bitok, for making time. Always a pleasure to have you on the Morning Cafe.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Gerald Bitok there, a political strategist, helping us understand most of the stories, if not all, in the People Daily today, of course, from politics to matters business. But right now, I want us to take a short break, and when we return, we take a look at stories making headlines. Of course, we want to find out what was happening as far as Madaraka Day is concerned, the developments in the country as far as also politics. So if you want to find out all this and much more, you may need to stay tuned. So don't go too far. The Morning Cafe will be back shortly.
the venue for Kenya's 57th Madaraka Day celebrations. The least colorful event in Madaraka Day celebrations history.
God bless Kenya.
Nonetheless, the president's speech was as rich as others in the past. In his speech on Monday, President Uhuru Kenyatta pushed for, among other things, amendments to the 2010 Constitution.
I am already discerning a constitutional moment, and I want to be clear, not a moment to replace the 2010 Constitution, but one to improve on it. A moment that will right what we didn't get correct in 2010.
The president's remarks come at a time when the country is on a break in the push for the constitution changes through the BBI initiative. The BBI initiative has, however, been a major source of differences among leaders. The president and his deputy too have differed on the BBI process. But when making his 8th Madaraka Day speech as president, Uhuru Kenyatta also called for a change in political architecture in the country.
We cannot reimagine our nationhood also without changing our political architecture. But we cannot change this architecture without re-engineering our constitution.
Uhuru also took a swipe at politicians whose intentions are driven by self-interest and not the public good.
We need political leaders totally committed to promoting not themselves, but what will transform lives of our people in line with what our founding fathers yearned for. Indeed, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I quote, "We need political leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice. Not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity."
The State House Madaraka Day celebration event was attended by, among other, opposition leader Raila Odinga, Deputy President William Ruto, and ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi. Aaron Kipkoech, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has allocated 2 billion shillings that will be directed to the hospitality sector, which has been greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. President Kenyatta said the money will enable hotels and other related sectors to keep their staff. Also, President Kenyatta has directed the Ministries of Health, Interior and Education to fast-track talks on measures meant to guide the reopening of schools and places of worship in keeping with COVID-19 measures. Zablon Macharia reports.
Our national response to the coronavirus pandemic, because I will be addressing you again on this issue in a few days to come.
Its declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta that was long awaited by Kenyans will have to wait longer for good news. Speaking during the 57th Madaraka Day celebration at State House, Nairobi, President Uhuru Kenyatta has directed the Ministry of Education to hasten discussion with other stakeholders in order to come with a solution and guidance on reopening of schools.
I am hereby directing that the Ministry of Education fast-tracks and finalizes the ongoing consultations with all stakeholders that will provide us with an appropriate calendar for the gradual resumption of education in the country. The guidelines should also include protocols to be followed by all learning institutions.
And as the doors in places of worship remain shut, President Uhuru Kenyatta has called upon the Ministry of Interior and that of Health to continue engaging with the religious leaders to ensure that there will be more participatory way reopening in keeping with COVID-19 containment measures.
Continue and hasten their engagement with religious leaders across the country with the objective of developing protocols that will be adopted to guide a more participatory way of worship while guaranteeing the safety of worshippers.
President Uhuru Kenyatta also announced a 2 billion shilling kitty for hotels and other related sectors to cushion their staff from the ongoing mass layoff. President also congratulated health professions and security officers who have been the frontline in fight the pandemic. Zablon Masharia, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, can we say the unexpected happened at State House yesterday? And well, looking at what the President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy were in public together, the fact that they were in public together after a long time, and they seemed to gel despite the ongoing political fight in Jubilee Party. And as Andreen Kilemi reports, it seems like the two donned identical outfits. Let's hear more from Andreen.
For the first time in more than a month, Deputy President William Ruto was making a public appearance, this time at the House on the Hill. President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy were meeting at the backdrop of the ongoing Jubilee Party purge that has seen Ruto allies axed from party committee positions in the Senate. But their interactions right after Madaraka Day celebrations were far from the expected. The duo exchanged light moments, and yes, they even had identical outfits.
57 years ago, Kenyans made sacrifices for us to have the most important thing in life, that is to make decisions for ourselves and to chart our destiny. We have had a journey of 57 years, and every generation and every government have had to grapple with tough decisions when faced with challenges as a nation.
President Uhuru Kenyatta was quick to criticize politicians who are already rising the political temperatures in the country, urging them to instead focus on development.
As we reflect on the progress we have made, as we look inwards for self-introspection, we must not over-criticize ourselves. And I say so because in the subconscious mind, we become what we repeatedly do. If we repeatedly feed our national psyche with negative energy, we become an nation of angry and frustrated people. Yet dreams cannot flourish in a negative environment whose main currency is anger and animosity.
Sources reveal that the two leaders had a meeting over the weekend, and whatever was discussed is still unknown. On May 1st, during the Labor Day celebrations, Deputy President William Ruto did not attend the function that was also held at State House. He had also been loudly silent on the purge taking place in the Jubilee Party, targeting leaders believed to be his allies. Andreen Kilemi for TV47.
According to the order. Okay, well, moving on to a different story here. This year's unique Madaraka Day celebrations were held in State House, Nairobi, with a guest list of only 46 dignitaries due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our reporter Linda Alela has more on that story.
The country commemorates the 57th Madaraka Day, but this time around a little bit different, courtesy of the COVID-19 pandemic that the global fraternity is dealing with. Walking to a deserted Nyayo National Stadium, contrary to what you'd have expected on a normal occasion. First time in history, Madaraka Day is being celebrated virtually, no sturdier gatherings. Zero crowds of people accessing the Nyayo National Stadium, empty and folded seats. No vendors that would traditionally position themselves to sell foodstuffs at the entrance. Clearly, it's not business as usual. Kenyans have been forced to celebrate Madaraka Day differently, if at all there were celebrations or anything to celebrate about. The only traces of Madaraka Day were the buildings draped with the national flag and the fighter jets that made a fly past for the guests at State House, Nairobi. Another key feature on Madaraka Day celebrations is this: God bless Kenya. Manna hanging from this military helicopter and the franked 3 others from the 50th Battalion of the Kenya Air Army. Many Kenyans, however, chose to carry on with their errands, perhaps under pressures exerted on them by the ravages of COVID-19. Others seemed to long for the usual celebrations where they could throng sport arenas. They found themselves at Uhuru Park, possibly hoping for activities no matter how minimal, while others came for the usual breeze at the park.
Wakati zilikuwa na tamasha Uhuru Park, nilikuwa nakujaga hapo. Sababu nilikuwa nataka kuona jeshi. Sana si ati hotubu au nini, kuona jeshi na fly past. Ndio ilikuwa ni kitu kinanifurahisha sana mpaka leo.
Na sherehe tumekuwa nazo tangia hapo awali imekuwa tofauti sana na ya leo. Sababu siku zote tumezoea tunaenda mahali, at least tunajienjoy, tunakuwa na hiyo time, tunakuwa na unity.
I too decided to revive the good old days. After all, it's a special Madaraka Day. Shangilia Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda daima, Kenya tunayoipenda daima. Hawkers, on the other hand, had nothing to be happy about. Many made minimal sales, if not nothing at all. Their would-be customers were at home.
Kama kuna celebration kama hii, sometimes inaenda huko Nyayo Stadium. Na baraka kama ni ndizi tu peke yake. Sikuwa nauza hata mananasi. Ni vile hakuna job sasa. Sasa nikaanza nipatisha watoto before walala njaa. Sasa napatisha tu na hizi.
The virtual Madaraka Day celebrations started at 8 a.m. with a guest list of only 46 dignitaries at State House, Nairobi.
Hawa ndio mambo yote na hakuna wananchi. Ngikaa hivyo tu. Na tuikumbuke hiyo siku.
Things have been and will continue to be different until a time when the virus curve will flatten or a vaccine against the deadly COVID-19 is found. Every other year, Madaraka Day will be commemorated with celebrations across the country. But as you have seen, this time round it's a little bit different as the world continues to battle COVID-19. Reporting for TV47 at Uhuru Park, Nairobi, I am Linda Alela.
Thank you for that report, Linda Elela. Now, moving on to another story here. Tenants at Jemuma Apartments in Nairobi West have decried what they say are harsh rental terms by their landlord, aiding ravages of COVID-19. They say their houses are often locked even when they delay in paying rent for a few days, especially during the coronavirus pandemic period. The landlord has, however, denied knowledge of the harassment claims. And let's hear more from Eli Logova.
From a distance, these apartments look pleasing to the eyes. However, the story behind it is nothing worth smiling about. Jemuma Apartments, owned by one Njuguna Kirubi in Nairobi West area, is said to have left its tenants in agony. Kevin Omari, not his real name, has been staying in these apartments for the past 1 year. He narrates the agony he has been going through as a tenant. Pain echoed by others.
The houses, you would say from outside, look really good, but when you move in is when you realize what is really happening here, and actually you realize what has been happening and is still happening here. Okay, for instance, I'd say the condition of the houses is not so good. Even when you are coming into the house, most of the houses, you'll hear most of the tenants when they are moving in, the houses had issues that they were told that when you get in, you are going to they're going to get solved, yeah. But at the end of the day, they never get solved. In connection with those problems in the house, yeah. When you move out of these houses, for instance, the landlord expects you to fix the house, paint it, repair it, anything that is spoiled. And remember, you moved into a house that is not, a house that is not in good condition.
Further, Kevin says the landlord mistreats them to an extent of closing and welding their doors if they fail to pay rent after 5th of every month.
If you delay past 5th, of course, your house is welded. And for you to move back in, and this has also applied even during this corona period, you have to pay a 3,000 penalty. There's a 3,000 penalty on top of the normal rent, and an extra 3,000 for the electrician and the guys of welding. Now you're the person to pay them to come and weld the door. When you pay your rent, for instance, you expect a receipt back. It's something that can help you justify when you want to move out. They are not given here, and when you want to move out, you have to produce them. Because it intimidates you for the KRA pin. He had asked us for our KRA pins, and most of us said we're not going to give him. So he ended up switching off the lights, and here we use token lights that we have actually paid for. Electricity is free in Kenya, but he'll come and switch them off.
With the COVID-19 hit on the economy, to Njuguna Kirubi, the owner of this apartment, business is as usual. To him, profits and rent matters. The owner of the apartments, Njuguna Kirubi, however, refuted these claims. In a text message, Njuguna says, and I quote, "I will propose to find out tomorrow and address any issues that be affecting them, and shall promptly resolve within the lease guidelines. Some of the affected tenants are set to move out on Tuesday." Eli Logova, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you for that report, Logova. Well, his story does bring us to a short break. Remember, of course, also we have a lot lined up for you today. Talk about branding for men in terms of how you should dress for different occasions. And of course, what suits what body type for the men in this case. So today, don't go too far. We have a lot lined up for you on the Morning Cafe. But before we take a break, let me also remind you that as we come back, we'll be looking at some very pertinent issues affecting you and I in the country. So you may want to stay tuned. So don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you are watching the Morning Cafe. Right about now, I want us to go into a discussion, trying to do it a little bit differently today, because we just want to look at all matters business. Of course, the hotel industry, hospitality industry in this case, has been greatly affected by the pandemic. We're talking about also SMEs trying to survive, and to understand these issues and probably, hopefully solve forge a way forward for some of these issues we're grappling with right now. We have Duncan Otieno, who is an economic analyst. Duncan?
Yes, Leah, how are you?
Good to see you, Duncan.
Doing very well. Hope you're also doing very well.
We're looking at the SMEs. SMEs have been a conversation the country has been having in terms of making sure that most of them do not die away and they get to survive. We've talked about, we've also seen the whole idea of having an economic stimulus plan to help the SMEs. And of course, we know that out of the 53.7 billion allocated to post-COVID-19 economic stimulus package, we have 19.5 billion intended for development and 36.7 billion for recurrent expenses. But over and above that, we are talking about SMEs and the fact that the MPs are being encouraged to a 712 million for loans to SMEs. Do you think really loans are the answer to the current status in the country as far as SMEs are concerned?
Yes, Leah. I didn't get the last part. Sorry.
We know that the government is considering giving loans to the SMEs in the country so that they can survive. Do you think loans are the answers right now, or should we consider grants as we've seen with other foreign countries?
Thank you, Leah. We need to appreciate the fact that in this current economic downturn, loans might not be really the way out, in the sense that these businesses they feel that without the storm of this pandemic are struggling. Unless the loans are modeled in a way that they have a long grace period, the period for which they're supposed to be serviced, then that would work. But in the absence of that, what these SMEs needed would be a direct injection into these businesses in the form of grants, such that you are able also to give them what we call a lifeline. Because when you provide loans, the conditionalities of those loans might make it difficult for these businesses to, in the long run, see or derive the benefit for which they were intended. Given that most of these SMEs are the ones that employ a host of Kenyans, and for them to come back to business, what they needed most would be some form of non-conditional assistance. So a loan would come with its costs, which might not work for the benefit of these SMEs.
Well, Duncan, even as we talk about loans, and your sentiments have been echoed by quite a number of people, the possibility of maybe grants would be the ideal way to resolve the issue and the current circumstances that SMEs have found themselves in. But when you look at the whole idea of even giving loans, the question is the sustainability of that. And then considering that some of these SMEs may not even be in a position to service some of those loans.
Yes, that is why I still reiterate the fact that most of these SMEs are really struggling. Even in the period before this pandemic, some of them were really struggling to remain afloat. And if you bring in these loans in the current setup, clearly they are unable to make good use of them, in the sense that these loans are tied to short term, and again, it's a model that the government might not in the long run sustain. Sustainability of this model is not guaranteed. But when you look at grants, depending on how it's rolled out, there's a possibility of clustering or clustering these SMEs regarding or with respect to the scope of the operations and the way they are structured. That would inform to what extent can they be supported with respect of grants, because grants clearly would serve ultimately in bringing back these businesses, these MSMEs into operation, rather than loans, which again they still have to struggle with the conditionalities of paying these loans in the long run. But ideally, much as the government might not be in a position to sustain this particular model, it would be the lesser devil if we are to ask.
Let's take a look at the new spending normal. Duncan, of course, we're seeing consumers are not spending in the same habits that they were spending in previously. And of course, this means this is also a multiplication effect on the profits of SMEs and whatnot. When you look at adjusting to the new spending normal for consumers, what can SMEs do?
Now, thank you. When you look at the new spending normal, what we realize is that the pattern of spending has been reduced or confined basically to what we call essentials, whether it's food, whether it's rent, and the other things that are not in that bracket have been relegated to the periphery. So the SMEs that want to remain relevant in the business are the ones that will be structured along one, providing opportunities that in the long run go a long way in protecting those essential works or essential jobs. But those that are not in the business of undertaking those essential services run the risk of getting it wrong, in the sense that people are faced with a choice to make, and these choices they have to make are: should they first provide the basic needs, or should they go the extra mile of looking at the luxury they can't afford? So SMEs that model themselves or rewire themselves within that particular service provision would be the ones that would take advantage of the situation and remain afloat, given that this new normal requires that every player in the industry, in the economy, must rethink their existence and rethink their structure and their model and work a structure or a model that would be in conformity with the changing times and that would work best for them in the given circumstances.
Well, Duncan, talking about what you've mentioned, the whole idea of, like we've talked about, loans and grants, and now you're talking about the new spending normal and what they can do. I think the another issue that has emerged, especially as far as SMEs are concerned, is the survival rate in terms of what you're saying, adjusting to the new normal, getting the loans. And if they don't get the loans, what does it mean for SMEs? So if you look at the current status, what would you say are the chances of most of the SMEs in the country to survive?
I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but for those that will rethink their existence and look at their structure and rewire it in the sense that it is in tandem with the changing reality, those would, I would say, would survive. But for those that would continue as if it is business as it used to be, those are likely to run the risk of rendering themselves irrelevant or having challenges to come back to their normal status. So in terms of going forward, it calls upon every player in the economy. Even the economy itself has to be restructured differently so that it appreciates the different times we are in. So even this economy, these SMEs being key players in the economy, must also rethink and rejig themselves in the sense that they take cognizance of the realities that they have to work in and look at their current structure or model supporting their further existence, or in light of the new dynamics, is a rethink of the structure, what would work best for their survival. So that's the decision that most of these SMEs have to make as and when that time comes for them to ensure that they have a lifeline going forward.
I want us to shift gears, Duncan, to the hospitality industry. Not too long ago, Serena Hotels sent all employees on unpaid leave from June 1st. That is yesterday. Of course, also we know the Fairmont Norfolk Hotels said on Friday that it is unable to operate normally in the wake of COVID. These are hotels that have operated for many years. They have served this country and, of course, made an economic contribution to this country. But when you look at now the current status of the hospitality industry, let me just get your views in a nutshell.
Thank you. One of the sectors that is has been hit hardest is the tourism sector. The entire the entire hospitality industry by extension, and businesses are closing because the way our tourism sector is modeled, it depends most on the travels, foreign travels, there's very minimal on local travel from the Kenyan society. So when we do not get guests from outside, there is low accommodation or zero accommodation in our hotels. There's diminishing revenue for these hotels. That's making it difficult for them to sustain their operation, let alone paying salaries and wages for their employees. So if they cannot pay their employees, it's basically like baking a cake. If you do not have the ingredients and the resources to bake the cake, you will not bake the cake. So these hotels, they are unable to mobilize enough of revenues in the way they've been traditionally doing it. Therefore, it leaves them with no choice other than to render staff redundant. And when they render the staff redundant, even the economy suffers, because tourism is one of the major contributors to the economy, in the sense that it's a foreign exchange earner to the country and to the economy. So when we see hotels closing, it has a multiplier effect, in the sense that, for instance, if the Norfolk closed and sent home 4,000 staff, there's the multiplier effect, in the sense that even if you say for each staff has 4 or 5 dependents, then that we are talking about 20,000 or 16 to 20,000 people that are affected, and that could be the neighborhood of 1,000 or 1,000 plus households that are affected. So this would have a multiplier effect in the economy, and that is why when you look at the president's speech yesterday, the president talked of injecting 2 billion in the hotel industry, in the hospitality industry, to see as a way of protecting jobs. Because by protecting jobs, you're also promoting economic activity in the economy, in the sense that those people will be paid their wages that they can also use to support the economic livelihood in these particular hard times. So the sector has been hit, in the sense that we are not, for a long time, we've been depending largely on foreign travelers, visitors who come to admire and appreciate our beautiful nature. But that there's very little in terms of local tourism, and that is why the sector is taking a huge bite, in the sense that we have invested much in marketing and modeling external tourism at the expense of local tourism, and even if the converse was true, then the sector would have not experienced much beating as it has experienced so far.
You know, Duncan, considering the fact that the tourism sector accounts for up to 15% of Kenya's GDP, yes, you know, that is not a very small number. So then yes, what do we do to improve this sector, even in the midst of COVID-19? Further than marketing, what else needs to be done?
There need to be, the government needs to come in this and adopt three-phased approach. One, the government need to, in the immediate term, the government need to inject money in this sector. One, to protect jobs, to protect job loss, and ensure that even those people who are unable to go to work because of the way the pandemic is being handled, continue getting income, so that they remain on the payroll, as that will also help in ensuring that the contribution of the sector does not go to a notch. And in the immediate plan, ensure that this sector, the hotels and the industry as a whole, is cushioned from such shocks that can come even in future. And then holistically, in the long term, the government should partner with these sector players to ensure that the sector is well prepared and well cushioned in the long term from the shocks that would come from such phenomenon. So in the immediate plan, what is important is protecting businesses and protecting the jobs, so that there is no job loss, because any job loss has a huge ripple effect to the economy. So the government must come in and rescue the industry by injecting funds and investment into these businesses as a way of protecting them and also protecting the employees.
Even as we talk about the fact that tourism is directly related also to the sustainability of hotels and their operations in terms of generating profit, you know, Duncan, there has been speculation that the domestic tourism may recover faster than the international. tourism. So the
in the external world, in the sense that this thing behaves off on the end, so that that things are beginning to look better, look up. Western places being opened for travel. So until that happens, then the country will have. That's what I was taught. That's what I meant by talking of even the sector having to rethink and reconsider their model. And in the event that takes long before the external spaces open up for travel, then as it behoves the country to look at strategies of promoting domestic tourism, as you said, given that this shelter-in-place policy has really led to a lot of boredom and even some anxiety and even some sort of stress and depression to people. So when local travel has been lifted, the ban on local travel has been lifted, perhaps it would be time that the government encourages people to visit around, and then as a way of promoting our own Kenyan brand of tourism, that would be able to help the sector start picking up, even as we are waiting for the external signals that the spaces are now being cleared for travel.
Lighter, Dan, can give some hope. There's belief that opportunities are being Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the Morning Cafe. Right now, I wanted to talk all about personal branding. And we have Musalia Mwenesi, who is a performance and image consultant. Musalia, thank you for making time.
Pleasure to be here, Leah.
When we talk about personal branding, what's all that about?
It's two things. It is your first impression as well as the last impression. And it's the reason why people can make decisions on your behalf when you're not in the room. So your brand is the mark that you leave on people. And because it's personal, it's you as an individual. What sort of qualities do you have that will leave a mark on someone's mind so that they can make a decision on your behalf when you're not there? We always think that our first impressions are the most important, but when you engage someone and you leave them, what are they thinking about you? What are they left with? What sort of feelings do they have? What sort of impression do they have about you? And will that impression be enough for them to make a positive decision on your behalf? So it's not just about becoming a celebrity or becoming famous, but also being able to leave enough of a good mark that people can make proper decisions on your behalf.
I know you've worked with a couple of celebrities and famous personalities. Would you mind mentioning maybe some of them, what the experience was like in terms of growing their brand right from scratch, from the point you met them to where they are now?
Okay. Yeah, there are a few. I've worked with people in media, I've worked with people in sports, in politics, in the corporate sector, people who wanted to go from management position to board position, politicians who were vying for different seats, people in the entertainment industry who wanted to take their brands to the next level, a lot of news anchors and people who are prominent media personalities. There's one example in particular where this guy, he had been in entertainment for quite a long time. And after we had a couple of conversations around, picking where your strong points are. And I think branding is really about understanding yourself. Once you understand yourself and you understand what works for your target market, because your brand is good, and it can be very exciting to a lot of people, but there's a specific group of people for whom it will be for, that they will take it and they will resonate with it and they will run with it. And once he found this niche group, this group that really took his brand, they became like his ambassadors, and now they took his brand forward, and now he has endorsement deals with big multinationals, telcos like Safaricom. He's the face of a couple of these corporates, and that's just one way that you can actually make your brand work for you to the point where you can actually profit from it.
So what's really the significance? You've talked about you can actually monetize your brand.
Yes.
So the significance of having the right brand, what is it?
So having the right brand can achieve three things. The first thing is it creates a mental picture that your target market will have of you, such that they can actually develop a relationship with you. If, for example, you don't know who I am, but you've seen me on YouTube, you've seen me online, you've interacted with my brand in multiple areas, your mind will start to develop a relationship with me. And once that relationship develops, it's almost like you know me, even though we haven't met. So the more frequently you interact with my face, with my image, with my voice, with the way I am, and the qualities that I represent, you can then start to have some kind of relationship with me, even with us not having been in contact. And that relationship can be enough for you to decide, okay, you know what, I like this guy enough to give him a job. I like this guy enough. I think he would be perfect for this campaign. I like this guy enough. Maybe we can refer him for something else. And you and I will never have crossed paths. A brand is a very powerful thing because it's a way in which people can pass judgment on you. And if you do it in a positive way, then you can make quite a bit of money from it.
All right. So, Mwenesi, where do you begin? When you get on your personal branding journey, where is the first stop? Which one is the first stop? Where do you begin?
Yourself. That's the first stop. You have to own yourself. You have to appreciate who you are. So, I know myself. For example, I'm not I would say a mathematician or a scientist or anything like that. But talking, I understand. And so, once you own yourself, once you understand who exactly you are, what you care about, and why, then you're in a position to now build on those things. People don't know their strengths, people don't know their weaknesses, and so you find people going into all sorts of things assuming, oh, because Leah is doing it, that's great. Because so-and-so is doing it, I'll also try my hand in that. But it's not for you. It's not who you are. So you need to understand who you are, your personality type. You might find that you might be a lawyer, but actually you're a very funny guy. And comedy might actually be more your calling, but if you don't take time to really appreciate and understand yourself, then it becomes difficult. After that, you need to understand who you are for. Once you know yourself, understand that there'll be people who will automatically gravitate towards you and think, okay, you know what? I love what she has going on for her. But I want more of this side, not this side. And when you pay attention to what people are saying about the sides that they want you to deliver on, maybe you need to focus on giving them more of that side. I'm not saying, this thing of fake it till you make it. No, that's not what we're talking about. What we're saying is listen to your target market, listen to your audience, listen to the people who are saying things about you, not necessarily because you have to pay attention to them all the time and let them lead your life, because that's why we started with yourself. Once you anchor yourself and you know exactly who you are, what your strengths are, then you can now start to pay attention and say, okay, these people who I am are paying attention to my brand. What is it that like? And social media, in person, as long as your qualities, your face, your image, your voice, whatever it is, can be felt and seen and heard by these people. And then deliver on whatever it is that you're good at. Whatever your audience say that they like about you, keep giving them that thing. Yeah. You might think that you're a fantastic fashion person, but then really your audience is telling you, actually, we like it when you talk rather than when you tell us, rather than when you dress. So pay attention to your audience, and consultants like myself, we help you cut through the noise so that you can actually concentrate on what you're actually really proficient at, so that you can extract value from that.
You mentioned knowing your personality, picking up from what your audience love. For me, I'm just giving an instance. I find the young people gravitating a lot to me.
whatever bacteria will form the odor as your natural smell progresses over time. So how you smell, how you look, how you're grooming your nails, your hair. For men especially, if you have facial hair, try as be as symmetrical as possible. You know, whatever's happening on this side needs to look the same on this side. And yeah, just be clean. You know, I mean, obviously there might be some people who say, okay, well, maybe I don't have that much water in my neighborhood, but try as much as possible to maintain a high level of hygiene, because people will first interact with your body before they interact with you, and especially in an interview which is likely to be close contact. Forget about corona and social distancing. I mean, if I can smell you, I can, you know, if I can see that, you know, you haven't washed your face or brushed your teeth or whatever it is, it sets off a bad impression right at the beginning. So ground zero for me is hygiene. Please maintain your hygiene. Be clean, be presentable, have your nails done, have your hair done properly. I mean, there's so much I can go into hygiene. It's $1 billion industry.
Let me tell you, Mwenesi, I've listened to some guys talk and they say, why would I have my nails done?
Yeah.
Gentlemen believe that doing your nails is for women. It's not for men. Talk a little bit about that.
People will see your hands first. You know, the hands are the most, and you know, that's why although right now talking about, you know, the police and hands where I can see them is not really the forum, but they want to see your hands, and the hands are the first thing that they will interact with. So if I see your hands, I will judge you and your health by seeing how clean your nails are. And that's why women wear nail polish, because you know, hands show a sign of health. You know, once I see your hands and I see that they're okay, it gives me an indication about your health and your well-being. Your hands and your face, these are the most important facets of interaction when it comes to men. So pay attention to these things, because you know, unless you're in an industry which doesn't care, maybe you're working with your hands, maybe you're in construction, maybe you're a mechanic, and even then, you know, I mean, it's not like you're going to be there forever. You're still going to interact with society. So hands, and then that thing about leaving the
long nail.
You know, no.
I don't get it too, by the way. I have nothing against the guys who have it, but then you'll always find guys who have the long nail.
Yeah, and I strongly advise against that. I mean, it's poor form, and it shows that you know, you're not really particular about your hygiene and your grooming. So ground zero is hygiene and grooming. Shower, brush, you know, clean yourself up, make sure that your body is actually smelling and looking fresh and hydrated. And then the second, from ground zero you move to one, and one is whatever's going on inside. Underwear and socks. You can't have enough of underwear and socks. You know, those two are in the same WhatsApp group in terms of quantity and cleanliness. They need to be a lot, and they need to be clean. You know, we take for granted that you know, I'll have, you know, 2 pairs of underwear for the whole week. I mean, that's not ideal. I don't want to get into too much detail, but underwear and socks, these are the closest things to your skin, and so you need to make sure that they're clean and on heavy rotation. Don't wear them out for too long. You cannot, if you can afford to, at least have 1 pair for every day, you know, of the week, as much as possible. For men especially, and you know, some men are different, but I encourage, because we live in a very warm climate as well here in Kenya, in Africa, have maybe a vest or an undergarment, like an inner t-shirt. They're not those baggy t-shirts, but something that is close fitting to the skin, that does not interfere with your shirt, because that forms part of underwear as well. What that does is it gives you an extra layer of absorption in case of perspiration and things like that. And you know, when people put their hands up and you can see the pit stains and stuff like that, they're just some things that give you away. Obviously, you won't have pit stains if you use a good enough deodorant or a good enough roll-on that will allow you to not perspire as much.
I'm sure there's someone who's asking, where do I get the good enough deodorant? Because it might also mean I have to spend a lot of money. Are there affordable, you know, alternatives?
I mean, for me, a brand is an investment. You know, you are the asset. You are the value. I mean, we think of investments in terms of cars, maploti, shamba, whatever. But you first, if you can start to invest in yourself and you say, I am an asset, I am a business, I have value, and I can create opportunity for myself and for my family, then you will invest in yourself. And investment is not just you know, food, shelter, and clothing. It is also how you present yourself to the world, because people will judge you based on how you look and how you smell, and they will give you opportunity based on those things. Communication is 10% what you say, 40% how you say it, and 50% the non-verbals, of which your brand, how you carry yourself, how you dress, how you look, how you smell, is 50%. It's 50% of communication. I've seen countless examples of people being turned away or not being given a job or being overlooked or being not paid attention to, just simply by the way they present themselves. Intellectually, they have amazing content, they're really brilliant, but because of the way they carry themselves, they fall short. And that's an entire 50%. So for me, as soon as you make that argument of it's expensive, and when I talk about this in other forums about financial planning, if you choose to spend money on the weekend, on partying, buying alcohol, chewing mirror, whatever it is, you can afford to clean yourself. It's what you focus your priorities on. And for me, grooming is such a priority. So just invest in yourself.
And I know part of grooming is also how you speak, the kind of language you use.
Yes.
I know personally I'm very big on decorum.
Yes.
I mean, decorum is what breaks the camel's back for me, especially when relating with anyone. But when you look at matters, the kind of language you use, how you carry yourself, not just in interviews, but just generally how people will view you, what can you say about having the proper language or decorum? Okay, so decorum is really influenced by a couple of factors: your upbringing, where you were born, the environment that you grew up in. That might have an effect on how you speak. The culture, the traditions that you were exposed to, the education exposure that you got. So all of these things notwithstanding, whenever you're in a place, do as the Romans. You know what they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans. Etiquette is really about helping the other side feel comfortable with you. Yeah, if you display good etiquette, it means that you want the other side to be as comfortable with you as possible. So when you come into a room, you need to have the social and emotional intelligence to read the scenario and say, okay, these people, what's going on with them? How can I blend in with them so that I do not cause offense, so that I do not cause any issues with them? How do I moderate my own behavior so that it can match with them? People will do business with the people who they feel most comfortable with. And that's why tribalism, sexism, racism, all the isms exist, because I want that familiarity. And as soon as I feel like you are different from me, that you're behaving in a different way from me, I will automatically, put my guard up, and I won't want to interact with you. So the ability to decorum is really to have to blend in with the decor. So you're literally trying to merge with whatever it is going on in your environment. But if you'll allow me to go back to the grooming aspect, because you're absolutely right, and I think the speech and communication part comes that's like the icing on the cake. But once you've finished your body hygiene and you've moved into now the underwear and the socks and the rest of it, the next level 2, if I can call it that, is the top. And whatever is going on at the top, whether you're going to put on a shirt, whether you're going to put on a golf shirt or whatever it is, it needs to be ironed first and foremost. The creased look, you just look lazy, yeah. And the more formal you go, in terms of a buttoned collared shirt, the sharper you look. So if you want to present a sharp, formal look, and when you talk about sharp and formal, sharp is, you see, like the color of this is sharp, right? Anywhere where you have edges, and that's why when you wear a suit, because there's so many different edges on the suit, you look sharp. So the more formal you have, the more effort you put into putting on a shirt. Throwing on a t-shirt versus throwing on a golf shirt versus buttoning a shirt, it's the levels of effort that you put into it. And the most effort that you have is a formal collared shirt. So put on a formal collared shirt. If you have to check the fit, because fit is everything. If there's a lot of space here, then that's too big. There shouldn't be any space in between the shirt. And if you can't even move your arm up, it's too tight. Your neck actually needs to fit properly. So just make sure that your shirt actually fits and is appropriate for you. The next level is your bottom. 1 inch is from the skin and your clothes. That's good enough. I see people now who have warmed up to the trend of fitted suits, and you find something that is literally like it's been painted on, and that's call them the Italian suits.
Yeah, I mean, still, you have to be comfortable. There has to be a little bit of space that allows you to move. I mean, if you look at people who wear suits well, like James Bond and characters like that, they can actually move quite a bit. So your suit is not supposed to be something that is completely restricted, but fit and form need to be absolutely right. So on top of the shirt, you can go formal, really, with a tie, or informal and leave the collar out. Business formal is really the highest level of formal, where you have the top, the bottom, and the cover. So top, bottom, and cover is where you would want to be in an interview. If you want to throw in a tie, fine. But make sure that it fits. And for me, fit is really 1 to 1.5 inches from the body, and your pants need to be tapered. Tapered means it goes at least, it moves according to the silhouette of your body. If you don't have, if you can't afford a tailored suit, then you can buy something off the rack in a shop and actually get fundi akushone, so that it looks and it stays just above the ankle.
All right. Monesi, thank you so much. You have so much knowledge on personal branding. I suspect that we'll have you back again just to talk a little bit more about now what fits, what doesn't fit, and what looks more presentable. But thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge, sharing it with us today, and of course the audience who are watching us today. Thank you for making time.
Most welcome, man.
Well, this has been the lifestyle segment. Talk about branding. We have the brand. He calls himself the brand. That's Paul Kirobi. He's in studio here just waiting for the morning cafe to come to a close. Then he can bring you the day's news. I'm not sure if he can be able to talk to us, but well, he can wave and just let people know that he can hear me. And I know he has a lot lined up for you. And again, let me just remind you, this it has been the morning cafe. Indeed, talking about personal branding. We hope that you have learned 1 or 2 things or many things in this regard. Thank you for watching. My name is Leangari. As always, it's a pleasure. Have a good day and God bless.